What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is a series of unfortunate events, Season 3, Episode 1, The Slippery Slope, Part 1. And I've been excited to get back into this, mainly because I enjoyed Season 2. I don't think it was as good as Season 1. I think Season 1 had higher heights, and also Season 2 had some moments that I felt were a little weird, didn't quite work for me, some changes that I feel like is going to affect the story, especially coming into this season. But I was still looking forward to this season and seeing what they were going to do. So far, I find myself thoroughly entertained. I don't feel like I'm really laughing hard at the moment, but I have found myself chuckling at a few jokes. I find myself having a good time, and definitely one of the biggest contributors to that enjoyment is, once again, Patrick Warburton as Lemony Snicket. He's just perfectly built for a role like this in a show like this. He's got such great dry humor in the way he delivers lines. And the show, a lot of the humor is dry. It is dark. Yes, they sometimes go goofy, and that type of humor isn't quite working for me, but I get what they're going for. But Patrick Warburton, I mean, he's just, every time he's on screen, I'm having a good time. So those Lemony Snicket scenes are phenomenal. Some of them also feel very reminiscent of the show Fargo. I still haven't seen the movie. I know I need to, but there were some of the scenes. One in particular was the Cinderella scene where he's talking about, yes, Sunny's story is basically Cinderella, but just take out the fairy godmother and everything that comes with it, which in and of itself is kind of dark and hilarious. But the way he delivers it and the way the scene is shot, it felt very much like Fargo. It was kind of an uncomfortable, weird feeling about it. And I think that's the feeling they're going for, personally. So I'm having a good time with those scenes for sure. The other thing that we do learn in this one is we learn who the mystery woman is. It is actually Kit Snicket, who I do vaguely remember. I don't remember if she was brought up in the original books. I do remember reading one book that kind of expanded upon the lore of Series of Unfortunate Events in VFD and all of that. And I do remember Kit Snicket being brought up as one of Lemony's siblings. So I don't know exactly what role she's going to have. Obviously, we see she's got the sugar bowl. She loses it at some point. She's also pregnant, so she's dealing with that. Trying to escape from the man with no hair but with a beard, and then a woman with no beard but hair. Or however, I remember these names. I just don't remember how to say them because they're very confusing. But she manages to get away. All of a sudden, Mr. Poe shows up, and I'm still in that mindset of I kind of wish he wasn't around. Like, I understand with the actor, if you've brought him on, if you've contracted him, if you've basically told him, hey, you're going to be here for the whole series, I get at that point you have to bring him back. But from a narrative standpoint, bringing Mr. Poe along for these stories doesn't make any sense. Like, having him in the little side story where Lemony Snicket's talking about Stockholm Syndrome, that's hilarious. And it's nice to have a little levity, and it's a character we recognize with Mr. Poe getting knocked over the head by this woman and then becoming friends with her. That's hilarious. And then all of a sudden he shows up in the main story and he's looking for the Baudelaires. I'm like, he didn't do this. At least I don't think he did. Honestly, because I've been thinking about it, I still haven't gone back and reread the books. I probably need to. But I do think he shows up in the 12th book, The Penultimate Peril. If he showed up there and he actually did show up in the books, then that's fine. It makes sense because it's part of the story. But when you bring him back in these stories where he wasn't involved originally, it makes him look kind of worse. It makes him look like a worse character because he knows what's going on with the Baudelaires. And then yet you bring him in and he sees Count Olaf and he doesn't realize it's Count Olaf, even though he's seen him multiple times, even though this guy's calling himself Count Olaf, and he's just like, oh, wow, there's so many Count Olaf. And now in this one, he's looking for the Baudelaires as if he actually cares about them, seemingly. I'm like, this does not match any of what we've seen from his character before. So why is he here? And I do find it kind of funny, though, that Lemony Snicket even says, even though it's kind of out of character for him. So I don't know if that's the writers poking fun at themselves for how he's been acting. I don't know. It definitely does not work for me to see him continually return and show up in this story when he wasn't originally, because it doesn't work with his character, and it kind of lessens his character in my mind. But also, we do see what's going on with Count Olaf and his group because Sonny is there, and these are scenes that I vaguely remember from the books, and looking up a bit of the plot synopsis, I do see some of that happen in the book as well. But even just seeing her make the connection with the hook-handed man, it does set up for something that comes a bit later that I'm kind of looking forward to with how they're handling it. But seeing his whole group there, once again, it brings back the feeling of we don't really see him losing in this moment. He's still got his whole group. The person of indeterminate gender and the bald man with the long nose, both still there. Neither of them died like they did in the books. It doesn't feel right. And going forward, knowing what comes in the next couple of stories, I'm sitting here going, so how are you going to handle that? Like in the books, he starts to lose all of his henchmen. In the books, bringing along the circus freaks makes sense because they lost a couple of henchmen. And so you brought them along to make up the numbers. So why do you even have them? They just kick them out, basically. They say, hey, go off on your own. And I don't know, maybe that did happen in the books, like they did kick the circus freaks out and make them go do their own thing. But in this, it kind of just feels like, yeah, we don't need you because we still have the full group. We still have everybody here. So having them along feels unnecessary. Whereas in the book, it felt kind of necessary for Olaf and his group. So it's something that I'm not really feeling at the moment. I'm not really liking where they're going. I did see a comment on one of my videos for reviews for last season. Somebody did say that it gets explained why they've made that change pretty early on. I don't know if it does in this episode or is going to the next, or I don't know, the one following, but definitely for this one, I'm just not feeling why the change was necessary. I'm not feeling why they decided to have this, because outside of a couple of extra jokes thrown in, like the person of indeterminate gender making that one funny joke where he's talking about catchphrases and stuff, that was probably the only thing that I noticed from either them or the bald man. Everything else was just the group together, which could have easily been done with the hook-handed man and the two white-faced women. So I don't know. I'm just not really on board with that change just yet, but we'll see what they decide to do with it in the future. Also, did they kill off the circus freaks, the man with no hair but a beard, and the woman with no beard but a hair? Because it seemed like they suggested that they're dead now, and I'm pretty sure that didn't happen. But as far as Klaus and Violet are concerned, they do meet up with the scouts that I've already forgotten the name of them now. But it's something that I don't really remember as well, but it's something that did apparently happen in the books, and Carmelita was there. But it is something that I really wish I had read the books recently, because I don't remember their interaction with Carmelita in the books. But here it was kind of a weird one where she's talking about she doesn't remember them, but then all of a sudden she does, and she says who they are, and they're like, no, we're not. And she doesn't instantly call them out on their bullshit, but she still does basically say like, oh yeah, you're orphans, you're blah, 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 you're cake sniffers, all of that. I don't know. It felt like a weird interaction with her, and she's not exactly my favorite. I know what type of character they're going for with her, just like with the one joke that was made in the car as Olaf and his group are driving up the mountain, and he's talking about, this isn't some goofy melodrama or something, comedic melodrama, I think. And then he starts, no. It was over the top melodrama, because then he starts laughing over the top, as does the rest of the group. And I'm like, okay, I get it. You guys are over the top and it's a melodrama. I understand the joke. It doesn't really work for me, though. Carmelita is kind of the same way. I understand what type of character they're going for with her, like that kind of preppy, annoying, kind of silly, villainous type of character. It's just not working for me. I don't know. She's not really that enjoyable to watch. I've seen characters like her that I've enjoyed to watch. In this, it's not quite working, and I think because the show has such a dark tone, a lot of her stuff seems sort of mild in comparison. Like, obviously, she makes jokes about them being orphans and stuff. It still doesn't seem that dark in comparison to a lot of what they go through. Maybe it's the actress, maybe it's the directing, maybe it's the writing, but something about her just doesn't quite work for me personally. But we do see they meet some masked kid who I knew it was going to be. But sure enough, he takes him up to the VFD headquarters. They see it's been burned down. Then he reveals that he is the survivor of the fire that Jacques was talking about, but not the Baudelaire fire, the Quagmire fire. He is Quigley Quagmire, and that is something that I knew because, yeah, I did remember that from the books, that he actually did survive the fire. Honestly, I remembered more that Quigley survived more so than that everybody thought he was dead when I've watched season 2, because I remember that scene whenever the Quagmire siblings were talking about losing their brother Quigley, and I'm just like, wait, I thought he was still alive. So it's just kind of funny to me, like what my brain retained versus what it sort of let go of. But it's interesting because a lot of the scenes with Violet, Klaus, and Quigley, they were okay. They were okay, but it did feel kind of weird. And I feel like it's that feeling that I got from moments in season 2 where when the kids are acting, when they're acting normal, when they're just talking like kids, and whenever they're dealing with tough situations, they're fine. But whenever they have to talk in like this sort of expository manner that it has a lot of complicated words that kids their age probably would not know, but because they're, the heroes and they're both super intelligent, they have to. I don't feel like the acting is really that good. And even Quigley, like some of his lines felt very monotone and robotic. And I don't know if that's the tone they're going for, but there are just several scenes where it feels very stiff and monotone to me. And it doesn't feel like they're acting. It feels like they're just reading the lines put in front of them. And again, maybe that's the tone they're going for. Maybe that's kind of the point of like, you have the villains that are so over the top and dramatic and all of that. And then you've got these heroes that kind of counterbalance that, where they're very, very calculated, very monotone, very by the book. Maybe that's what they're going for. Some of the scenes don't work for me, unfortunately. And I think that's where season 1, maybe they had that same sort of feel to it. And it, because it was the first season and it was something new, I kind of put it to the side and ignored it. But definitely season 2, I remember there were a couple scenes like that where I felt that way. And then in this one, there were quite a few scenes when they were having conversations with Quigley that I definitely felt that. I felt like it was rushed dialogue. It was a lot of words that sounded like they were just saying the words, but they didn't really know what they meant. Maybe that's just me. Maybe again, it's a choice that they're going for, and it works for some people and it doesn't work for others. I just have to hold my hands up and go, I'm not a fan, unfortunately. So hopefully we don't see too much more of that. Again, whenever they have more human scenes, whenever they're not just expositing, I think they're good actors and they handle the scenes very well. I think even the scenes at the beginning when they're rolling down the cliff in the carriage, whenever they're freaking out because they're about to die, I believed it. I thought it was well done. And then they get to the moments whenever they're talking about, what they have to do and how they're like working to fix this. Violet's explaining her invention. Klaus is explaining what he's doing, trying, I just need to apply more friction. It didn't sound believable. Like it was such a weird back and forth where I believe they think they're about to die. I don't believe that they actually think they're fixing this. I don't believe that they know what they're talking about when they're about to fix this. They just are saying words that fit the scene of them trying to fit. I don't know. But yeah, it's a decent setup for the next episode. We'll see where it's going to go from here. Again, we'll see how it all ends with this episode, with this book, because yeah, again, changes happen. Don't know if they're going to make those changes or not, but we will see. With all that being said, though, on to the next episode. I'll see you there. And now episode 2, part 2 of The Slippery Slope. Once again, pretty good, entertaining stuff. Some great moments, once again, with Lemony Snicket. I think the one in particular that got me laughing the hardest was when he was talking about Violet inventing, talking about all the mentors that she would have worked with, and talking about the man named Snicket who, after inventing all of that, would have shouted, "Let's have some pistachios." Him actually shouting it after she, claimed that it worked was a little, I don't know, it did kind of ruin the joke a little bit for me, but it's just the randomness of, let's all have pistachios. That was just funny enough to get me to laugh. So, but looking at the episode and looking over the plot synopsis, they do keep most of it the same. The Snow Scouts coming up the mountain, Carmelita joining Olaf and Esme, Snow Scouts being taken away. I don't know if they talked about the reason why they were taken away in the books. So knowing that there's actually this plan that these two people have to essentially have all these kids join them, and if not, then kill their parents because they're all coming from fortunes. It is kind of interesting. And these two characters, the man with a beard but no hair and the woman with no beard but hair, it is kind of interesting, and they are very intimidating characters to have. And seeing them recruit Olaf, is definitely adding a lot more lore to this story that I was not expecting to get. I knew we were building upon the story that was in the books, and we were seeing a lot more outside of the story of the Baudelaires, but actually getting a lot more about Olaf and how he came to be who he is. I was not expecting that, and seeing that, it definitely does raise a lot of questions, I think, about. I can't remember if they've talked about it yet, but what did VFD do that he saw as such a betrayal to him? I don't know. I don't know for sure. Maybe it's already been discussed. Maybe we'll find out. But I think it's probably the best part of this show for me is building upon that story and building upon the mystery that was introduced in the books and really getting to see some of that happen. Because that's something that I think when you do an adaptation, you have to make some changes that differentiates it. I think that's what the show is doing, that's differentiating it for me and is keeping it from just being, okay, well, why not just read the books? Well, this you actually get to see a lot more of what's going on. We will talk about the one moment from the book that they did do it, but they also changed it because Olaf tells the one with the white faces to throw Sonny off the cliff, and that's when they say no and decide they leave. That happened in the books. Apparently, in the show, this is also when the person of indeterminate gender and the bald man with the long nose also decide to just leave. So now all of them are gone from the group. So we're still now in the same place that we were in the books as far as Olaf and his henchmen. I don't understand why they decided to do it this way, though. It does sort of show that Olaf is losing control of what he's trying to do, and not everybody is really buying into what he's saying. But I feel like that's just as effective if you have the women with the white faces leave on their own without also having these other two. Also, I guess the circus freaks are just dead. They didn't show up in this episode, and there was a throwaway joke of, yeah, they definitely killed them, right? I don't remember what happens to them in the books, but yeah, they're just gone. We didn't see them at all in this episode. What? Then why even have them come along? I'll have to look up and see what happened to them in the books just to see if they did something similar. But yeah, it really threw me off whenever they just basically were like, yeah, they killed them, right? And then we never saw them again for the rest of this episode. I expected it to be a joke. Yeah, they definitely killed them, right? And then we cut down the mountain and we see them, like, I don't know, running away or scared out of their minds or freezing or something, just to be like, no, they didn't actually kill them. But seemingly that's not what we're going with. I don't know. It was very weird. And once again, makes some of these changes feel odd that they would bring them along just to have them disappear. But yeah, as far as the henchmen go, though, I still just feel like this change. I understand they're trying to show the disconnect between Olaf and his troop, and even with the hook-handed man helping Sonny and then pretending to kill her, we're seeing that he's not having these people buy into what he's trying to tell them anymore. He's not having them work for him anymore because they don't want to be a part of this. I get it. It makes sense that if you have more people saying that instead of just the two women, it does add a little bit more weight to what they're saying because it's 4 of them leaving instead of just 2. But at the same time, those moments in the book, whenever the person of indeterminate gender died, whenever the bald man with the long nose died, those were impactful scenes in the books. Those were impactful moments that stuck with me. Like, I remember reading those scenes. And so taking them out, it does it takes away a little bit. It takes away some of the harshness of reality. It takes away some of the darkness of the series to basically just have them not die and then decide, we're leaving. We're still leaving them behind. I don't know. We'll see if they do anything else with them. We'll see if they come back. Maybe we'll see little clips of them here or there, little cameos. But where it stands, if this is the last we see of them, I'm a little disappointed that they decided to take them out this way of the series, because it's not really as impactful for me. Maybe that's just me. Maybe other people thought this was a great change because it, again, adds weight to Olaf losing control of his henchmen. I'm in the camp of probably should have just kept it the same because it would have added a little bit more weight to last season as well. outside of obviously we lost Olivia and Jacques. But as far as Violet, Klaus, Quigley, all of them, you had your moments where, again, thought the acting was fine, and then some moments where thought the acting was very stiff and just very monotone, very robotic. It's very odd how it sort of switches from scene to scene. Some of them, there's emotion behind their voice. You can hear the inflections that really add to the emotion of the scene. And then there are some where it sounds like they never change pitch. They just say the lines at the same pitch. And I'm thinking, it feels rushed. It feels like, all right, guys, so we have all of these lines to get through. We have to get through them in 2 minutes. Go. Well, yes, let's look at the code. Okay, well, let me work on this. Okay, well, let me do this. Feels weird, especially because you don't have to take that much time. I mean, it's Netflix, so why can't you make episodes that last a little bit longer? Make those scenes last a few extra minutes so those lines don't sound so stiff and robotic. Like, it's got to be a director choice to have them speak that fast and that monotone, right? Or is it a writing choice to have them just say all these things very quickly? I don't know. But I thought the scene between Violet and Quigley, I think if they'd given that a little bit more time, because again, you rush through a lot of the scenes with them working together and with them talking. So when they get to that ledge on the cliff and there's that kind of little bit of a romantic connection, which I do remember from the books, it doesn't feel quite as earned here because they've not spent as much time together and they've not talked seemingly, well, we haven't seen them talk as much. I'm assuming they did have conversations off screen because they did spend some time trying to figure out what to do, Violet working on her inventions, all of that. But we didn't get to see a lot of that in here. So that scene doesn't feel as earned for me. And whenever he gets separated from them, I don't feel as gut-wrenched about it. I remember when I read the scene where he does get separated from them at the end of the book, I felt bad. For Violet, for Quigley, I'm just like, damn, like that sucks. Here, I'm just like, oh no. I didn't really feel it. Maybe some of that is because I know what happens later, but I don't know. I didn't really feel that scene. I didn't really feel, oh crap, man. Like Violet and Quigley had that emotional connection. It wasn't really there in this. So it feels weird that you're separating these books into 2 episodes, and yet you still can't find the time to really develop these relationships. And I almost wonder because you have fewer books that you're going through in this series, in this season. Because in season 1 you had 4 books, in season 2 you had 5, in season 3 you've got 4 books, and one of them you're doing in 1 episode. Why couldn't you spend a couple, like stretch this one into 3 episodes? Stretch the next one, especially because these final books, I do remember from book I think 8 onward, they were huge. Like book 1 was probably about this big. Book 10 I remember being like double in size of book 1. So you have more to get through in these books. Why not stretch out these episodes then? Why not stretch out, make 10, 11, 12, and 13? I mean, 13 is only going to be 1 episode. How are you going to do that? So I don't know. Maybe it's going to be a longer episode. I haven't looked at how long the episode is. But yeah, definitely, I don't feel like the Violet and Quigley relationship was well enough developed in this. I feel like it was very rushed, and the emotion of it did not hit me nearly as much as it did in the books, unfortunately. A couple of the other scenes that stood out to me that were a little weird. Esme coming down the mountain felt kind of over the top goofy and not in a good way for me. Her getting trapped and then them taking her up the mountain. I actually did look it up, and apparently they were planning to trap her but then decided not to because they didn't feel comfortable with it. And so then in this, they don't plan to trap her. She gets trapped, and then they're talking about trading her, like doing a hostage swap. And like in the books, they wanted to kidnap her, but they decided not to. So it felt weird. And then they get up there, they say they're doing a hostage swap, and then it doesn't even happen because she just cuts herself free. So it's like, why make that change then? But it makes them look both weaker morally and also less intelligent. Because not only were they willing to do a hostage trade in this, which they weren't in the books, because, I mean, she even says that's what makes your side of the schism weaker, because you don't have the guts to do stuff like this. Apparently they do. And it's not even guts. Like stooping down to their level, that doesn't take guts. In my opinion, that's a moment of weakness for them. And then again, they're not intelligent enough to check and see, does she have any weapons on her? Should we check her for a knife to make sure she can't cut her way out? So it's just, it feels dumb, and it feels like kind of a change that lessens their character, in my opinion. So there's that. There's also the fact that the woman with no beard but hair and the man with no hair but beard, they were both up there whenever the Eagles showed up and took the kids away. I don't think they were in the books. Like Sonny mentions it to Violet. I did, remember reading about that. Like I remember reading about them, but I don't ever remember them interacting with the kids. At least I don't think so. Not at least not in this one. I feel like they were characters that were more so on the periphery and were kind of kept in mystery. Here we're kind of learning they're the ones that apparently trained Olaf. They recruited him. They're arsonists. We see them interact with the Baudelaires. We hear about their plan, and the Baudelaires hear about their plan, which I don't think they did in the book either. I don't mind that we're getting some story outside of what the Baudelaires went through, because again, that's a nice change to make it a good adaptation, because it's more than just what's in the books. But having the Baudelaires see a lot of this stuff that was going on outside of what they saw in the books, it almost feels like you're giving them a bit more omniscience in a way. I don't know. I think them just trying to survive, trying to find these answers about VFD, I think that was enough for me in the books for them to go through. It's just them trying to survive Count Olaf's plans because he wants their fortune and he wants them dead. They're trying to survive that, but also just trying to get the answers about VFD and what they mean and what they're trying to do. I think that for me is kind of enough. Giving them information about what these two people are planning almost feels like, well, now we're going to try to have them stop it so they can be heroes. I mean, maybe they were in the books and I'm just misremembering, but I don't remember them being heroes really in the books. They were the protagonists, but a lot of their journey was just them trying to stop Count Olaf's plans and trying to survive his plans. And I think that's a lot more interesting than these kids that I don't know if these two are part of a bigger organization or not, but it feels like now Klaus and Violet are going to try to thwart their plans, and that feels like they're trying to make it bigger and more epic than what was in the books. Again, as far as I remember, I'm really kicking myself now that I didn't read the books when I had a chance. Honestly, I don't even remember where my copies of all the books are now, so it would take a lot of digging through stuff to try to find them. But yeah, I really do wish I could just quickly get through those books again and read so I can remember what they were all about, what the point of the books were. Because from what I remember, the books were all about survival and the strength of spirit, working through even when things look dark, even when things look bleak, even when things are very unfortunate. Keep going. You keep fighting. You keep pushing through. It was about that strength and resilience that we have, and also leaning on family members to do so, the sibling connection that you have and the friendships that you can make along the way as well. That was more so the point for me. It wasn't this big epic story. Yes, there was some mystery too, and that was fun to theorize what VFD was and theorize how the family and Count Olaf were involved. But the main focus was on the Baudelaires, and that was kind of enough. Here, I think the focus is more on the mystery and trying to show all the stuff going on outside. But having the Baudelaires be more part of that, having them seemingly take a bigger role in trying to stop whatever these two are doing, again, it puts them more in like a, haha, we're heroes, instead of just, no, we're just trying to survive. For me, personally, it makes it a little less interesting. It makes it a little bit more like the writers are trying too hard. Almost like it's a forced hero story instead of just, again, it's a story about survival. As I keep saying, maybe that's just my own personal take on it. Maybe this is just me misremembering what the books are about. But that's kind of how I'm feeling at the moment. One final thing is Carmelita in this. Once again, definitely not my favorite character by far. But her just walking up there and then just casually stepping over and like, oh, okay, I'll join you guys. And even the look she had on her face whenever the Eagles came and picked up the kids, which, yeah, those kids are idiots, by the way. I mean, just walking forward even though you can clearly see there's a tarp on the ground. Come on. And that's just stupid. But no, Carmelita, in that scene, when they get taken by the Eagles, they cut to her, and she has like this big evil grin on her face. Why? She doesn't know what's going on. Like, she just got up there, and they offered her a chance to work with them. And she was like, sure, yeah, whatever. Because, I mean, she's evil, and that's basically the only role she has, is they just made her evil. I can't remember how she gets convinced to join them in the books, but that's basically all they did. Was just, you want to join us? Sure. Walks over, sticks their little thing in the ice, which they really focused in on her doing that as if it was going to mean something, and then nothing happened with that. But anyways, but no, I just feel like, again, it's them forcing the point. You know, they have the kids be taken away, and they're like, oh, we really need to show that Carmelita's enjoying this. So let's cut to her smiling evilly. That's not realistic. Even if she was totally on board for joining these random people, she would still be like, okay, but what was that about? Like, why are we taking those kids? Could you guys explain that to? She wouldn't just be that, yes, good, all a part of our plans. You don't know what the plan is. Why are you smiling? So that was just dumb to me. But as far as where we are, obviously we see the sub show up at the end, which of course will be important for the next book. But yeah, I'm just not really a fan of the changes right now. I feel like a lot of the changes are doing things to the characters and doing things to the story that are not really helping it. I mean, even we see Kit and Mr. Poe in this one. They don't even really do anything. Like, Kit's trying to find a way back to the city, and she tries to do some skis. Mr. Poe's like, oh, we could take my car. And then the snow gnats show up. They don't know what happens with that outside of she makes fire. And the next thing we see, they're driving back in a taxi that's hers, because apparently Mr. Poe's car fell off a cliff. And then that's it. They see the fires in town. Why even have them in this story then? Like, nothing happened. Why have Mr. Poe show up? Outside of, again, probably they paid him a certain amount. So I don't know. It feels like they're making changes that are not really enhancing the story. Some of them are. Again, I think a lot of what we've seen in the past couple seasons that are adding to the story, the more of VFD that we're seeing in this episode, getting to see them recruit Count Olaf, that's interesting. I like those changes because they build upon the story, they build upon the lore that we know from the books, and they give a little bit more backstory and depth. But some of the changes are not helping. Some of the changes, again, they take away from the narrative. Not having those two henchmen die takes away from the narrative. Not having the kids plan to trap Esme and then not, and then also having them decide they're going to try to use her as a hostage, but then having her break away anyway, that doesn't add anything. It takes away from their character. It feels like there are some things that they feel they think is funny, I guess. Like, unfortunately, even some of the jokes that are made in this episode didn't really work. You have these random references where the white women are like, we would do anything for love, but we won't do that. Okay, cool. You referenced Meatloaf. Do you want a medal for making references? It kind of draws me back to She-Hulk a little bit, where it's like, oh yeah, we can break the fourth wall. Okay, but you're not doing anything funny with it. Hey, look, we can reference Meatloaf. Okay, but you're not doing anything funny with it. You just literally use the lyrics from his song. And then for Sunny, she grabs the sled that they use, or the toboggan they use to get down the mountain, and she grabs it and says Rosebud. Congrats, you referenced a movie. Do you want a medal? It's not funny. Like, yeah, she's got a sled. I get it. If you don't know the twist about the Rosebud and all that, it involves a sled. But how is her saying that here? How is that funny? Outside of, you had a sled and you made reference to Citizen Kane. How does that make me laugh? It doesn't. It just makes me go, oh, I get it. It's not funny. So yes, there are obviously frustrations that I've had with these two episodes, but on the whole of it, I still am enjoying it for the most part. It's kind of riding that line though. It's riding the line of, you have those moments that are enjoyable, that make me laugh, that are entertaining, and then you have those moments that are frustrating and make me go, what? Why are we doing this? Why are we making that choice? Why are we acting this way? It's kind of a back and forth. It's a weird balancing act. And again, it's right on the edge. I would say it's verging over into I am enjoying it more than I'm disliking it, but there's a lot of back and forth, unfortunately. So hopefully as the season goes along, as we get toward the end, hopefully I see why some of the changes have been made. Maybe it will add to the overall narrative. We'll see what this has all been leading to. Maybe even just the mystery will start to take more of the forefront, and I'll enjoy that enough to have a good time at the end of the day. But as things stand now, it's a bit of a weak opening for the season. Hopefully it gets better from here. With all that being said, that's it for me. So let me know down in the comment section below, what were your thoughts on these first 2 episodes? Do you agree? Did you have the same issues that I did? Or did you just have a good time? Let me know. We could talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future series of Unfortunate Events reviews. Also check out the channel. We have a lot of TV show reviews as well as a couple Let's Plays on there. So check those out if you have a chance. But until next time, I hope you guys have a great day. And I'll talk to y'all later. Peace out.